Cobra Kai never dies, but does the Karate Kid? Maybe with this movie. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video. So today I've got my review of Karate Kid Legends. This is the newest addition to the franchise. It is a sequel of sorts to the 2010 Karate Kid film, as well as the original Karate Kid trilogy. So it's just the next piece of this bigger franchise that includes the Cobra Kai TV show that I love. But before I get into my review, my thoughts on the movie, be sure to hit that like button. Comment down below your thoughts on this movie if you've seen it, as well as your expectations or predictions if you have not yet watched it. And of course, subscribe and hit that notification bell to help me reach my goal of 150,000 subscribers here on the channel. I mean, quite a bit. So I want to give you guys my history with this franchise before I get in. I always love to do that with franchise movies, and when it comes to the Karate Kid, it's a movie I watched growing up. The original, it's a classic 5 out of 5. I watched the second movie growing up a lot as well, the one in Okinawa, and then fast forward to about 2022, I did a rewatch of those two movies, watched part 3 for the very first time, and then went in and watched all of Cobra Kai. I then was able to watch season 6 live, and I've reacted to every episode. I love the show. I'll put a link up above to my reaction playlist where I've gone and watched through every episode here on the YouTube channel. It's an absolute blast of a show, really well done legacy sequel with lots of heart and care put into it. And then just recently, I watched the next Karate Kid for the first time, in addition to a rewatch of the 2010 film for the first time since theaters. So I've done a lot of prep work to be ready for this movie, Karate Kid Legends. And I was never fully sold on the marketing for this movie, right? It seemed a little gimmicky to me. I kind of said this feels like Sony trying to do a No Way Home for Karate Kid, which just feels wild to even say out loud. I know Jurassic did that with their eras of, their stars from the different movies. Why are we doing that with Karate Kid, especially when we already have a legacy sequel in Cobra Kai that nails it, So I was skeptical about this movie. I never fully bought in, and having seen the film, it all makes sense as to why. My distrust, my lack of faith in Sony, it was all warranted because this movie, it stinks. It stinks. There's no other way to say it. Normally, I'd start with my pros, but I'm going to save the minimal amount I have for the end because a lot of this review is going to be negative, and it's just the way I feel. I'll begin by saying Karate Kid Legends is not at all what it's advertised to be, and this is not the first offense by Sony where they mismarket a movie and it's egregious. They've done that with a lot of their Sony Spider-Man villain spin-off films, which that's a mouthful to say, but a lot of times they'll show shots in those films that paint the picture of a movie that doesn't actually exist. For example, with Madam Web, there are shots during the trailer of like Sydney Sweeney's character in a superhero suit, or, the main group of characters as a team, when in reality that's about 30 seconds of the movie tops. That's the case here. The same can even be said for a movie like Uncharted that's done by Sony, where they show a shot of Mark Wahlberg's Sully with a mustache, and that's actually just a post-credit scene. All of these issues with Sony's marketing, they come into play with Karate Kid Legends because major characters on the poster and in, trailers don't play as pivotal a role as you would hope, and I'm just going to come right out and say it. Ralph Macchio has a very small role in this film, and that was my prediction going in. After the trailers, I was like, he's barely going to be in the movie, and sure enough, that was the case. It felt like a case of Sony going, hey, let's do this for the marketing where we say we're combining two eras, the legends of Karate Kid with Jackie Chan from the 2010 film and Macchio from the OG, obviously, and let's have like these two senseis take on this new kid and teach him karate for a new tournament. You would think that would be the entirety of this movie. Wrong. About 45 to 50 minutes of this hour-and-a-half movie is actually devoted to this new kid played by Ben Wang. More on him later. He's probably the shining light of the film. In terms of his performance, he's charming enough, right? But this character moves from Beijing to New York, very rushed, and he ends up teaching someone else how to box, and it's not even another kid. And I'm not making this up. This is real. This movie does not feel like a Karate Kid movie. In many ways, it feels like Sony was like, hey, let's try and capitalize off the Karate Kid IP and just throw in Jackie Chan and Macchio at the end to try and make it some sort of like crossover event just for about 30 minutes though, because the rest of this movie isn't even going to be a Karate Kid movie. It's going to be like your generic coming of age film where a kid knows how to fight and he's going to teach someone else to box, or at least to be more agile and mobile in the ring because they've been out, fighting for a while. That's not a Karate Kid movie. In many ways, this is like the Rocky V of the Karate Kid franchise. What I mean by that is Rocky V is a movie that takes Rocky out of the ring. He's training this up-and-coming fighter. It's clearly like the weak link of the Rocky series. This is kind of how I feel about Legends because it is such a clear step down. It doesn't even feel like a Karate Kid movie. Again, the screen time of major actors is limited in this film, which makes their roles ultimately feel shoehorned in to try and brand this as a Karate Kid film when it's not that. And if you take a step back and look at the big picture, the movie's soulless. There's no heart here. The entire thing feels rushed through and strung together to try and make a buck off of the Karate Kid name. The entire movie is basically just a sequence of transitions and never-ending cuts to new scenes, rarely having any scenes that take their time to develop characters or breathe. I feel like this entire movie is just going. It's fast-forwarding through the very bare-bones script they had. I'm not kidding. For about 15 seconds, a character will get home and be talking to, you know, a friend or family member and talking about their day, dinner, boom, we're in the next day. Or this character will walk into a pizza shop and be like, yeah, I'm gonna actually be right back. I'm gonna order something. Boom, it's the next morning. It just moved, and not for the better. Oftentimes, you want a movie to be fast-paced. Well, here, it moved at a lightning fast pace for the worse because there was never a second to breathe, never a second to feel a moment between characters that was natural. Everything felt artificial and forced here. Like there was no flow or structure to this movie. It was just cut, transition. It was a mess, borderline disorienting. And then you have to factor in the fights. This is a Karate Kid movie, and the fights were even weak. What really frustrated me was the stylistic choice they made later in the film when you actually get into a tournament of sorts that, again, feels thrown in there to make it a Karate Kid film. It's like the obligatory third act tournament. Well, when you get into the fight sequences there, they're edited in a way that's video game-esque. There are freeze frames when characters land a blow or punch, and like a token noise will play over top, like you're playing, you know, literally a Mortal Kombat game or something, or an arcade game, and then the graphics will go +1, +2. It felt like something out of 2016 Suicide Squad. It pissed me off. Didn't have the style of a Karate Kid film at all. All of the previous movies at least have like a natural build-up to a fight. Here, again, there was a forced rivalry that had no real emotional stakes. All of it frustrated me. By the time we get to this 5 Boroughs tournament, the movie's speed running to get to the finals. So when you reach this final fight, this, you know, climactic moment of the film, it's unearned. You don't have the emotional investment you do in other films, because first, for starters, you barely know the characters involved, and more importantly, what are we fighting for here? It's a lazy excuse for a tournament. And I just can't get over the fact that more than half the runtime of this movie doesn't even really involve Jackie Chan or Ralph Macchio's characters. It's involving this kid training like a 40-year-old dude to fight again. It's what are we doing? It's a terrible idea. I can't emphasize this enough. There's no natural progression of character arcs. Every encounter feels forced. I mean, even the core romance of the film, I felt nothing for. Like, the performances were fine. That's not the issue. It's the writing. It's the situations that these characters find themselves in that are so dumb. They even make a choice to give Lee, like, a tragic backstory, and it's something we've seen done many times. Because of that, this movie is generic as hell. And that's a word you can stamp on a lot of movies nowadays, but trust me, this is generic as they come. It's super predictable. It's one of those movies where there's obvious flashback scenes that are going to play a role in the third act, and it's like the director saying, hey guys, pay attention to this because it's gonna play a role in the third act. It's almost eye-roll inducing. I also can't get over, again, how lazy the connection is to both the 2010 film and the original trilogy. The movie opens with like a flashback from the Karate Kid 2, and they just got so lucky with how they were able to connect the 2010 film to the 1980s trilogy, because we all know the 2010 movie was originally a remake, and it was not a part of the Miyagi-verse. It wasn't connected, and that's been acknowledged. In Cobra Kai, the series, they were literally talking about Jackie Chan, the actor, and the creators and actors have even said, yeah, the 2010 movie's not a part of the OG trilogy or Cobra Kai. Well, Sony, they stepped in and said, no, we got to connect these two because money, and it's just not for the better. You can tell there was no heart in this project, and it was to try and capitalize on the Karate Kid name. And I don't know how you can even disagree with that. It's so obvious watching this movie. Shallow would be a word I would use to describe the attempt at connecting all the movies into one, but also just the film in and of itself. Even actors I greatly appreciate, like Ralph Macchio, for example. Love Ralph Macchio, Daniel LaRusso. It didn't feel the same. The magic in his eyes was almost gone. And in many ways, I wonder, was there some sort of contractual obligation for him to be in this movie? Or did he just do it for a quick buck? And you know, I think he's great in Cobra Kai. You can tell he's got like a real passion for playing Daniel Russo. And if you look into his history, it took forever for him to come out of retirement in that role and play him again in Cobra Kai. And so here, I'm scratching my head. I'm going, why is he doing this? I mean, he's barely in the movie. Maybe he knew behind the scenes, like, hey, this movie's not going to butcher Cobra Kai. I might as well just step in and do it real quick and make money. I don't know. But there's definitely, when you watch his performance in this compared to his performance in Cobra Kai, there's a vast difference in my opinion. And you can notice if you pay attention to the details, like, you can tell he's just kind of phoning it in. And I felt the same about, you know, Jackie Chan and everyone, really. It saddens me because I don't think that the Karate Kid should be taken down to this level, but that's where we're at in the year 2025, I guess. Especially months after the Legacy show beautifully ended and tied a bow on this whole universe. Sony steps in and makes this movie for what? For what reason? It was also hilarious how this soundtrack for the movie was basically just TikTok's greatest hits. There were like trending TikTok audios playing left and right. The funniest, I actually laughed, was they used a song that came out within like the last month or so by Benson Boone. And it's like during a training montage. It's a song that's being memed and made fun of all over TikTok. And this song was not out when the movie was being made. So it just, you can tell it's such a last second addition. They were like, hey, let's throw this in here. It's trendy for the kids. It was just so cringe. Now, I won't say the movie's an absolute abomination. People will find enjoyment with this. Anyone can enjoy any movie. The screening was like mixed press with general audiences, and they had like local karate dojos, and the kids were like going crazy during the final fight, as expected, right? But the movie itself, it's dull, and you know exactly where it's going. The performance by Ben Wang, who plays Lee, he's probably going to be a star, if I'm being honest. Like, he's not the issue with this movie. I feel bad that he was just thrown into this. But, you know, it could be a star-turning role for him. Like, the kid had charisma, he had charm, and he seems to be a natural. He's got a couple other projects lined up, and he's going to be in the new Hunger Games movie. So good for him. I wish him the best. It's not his fault. It's Sony and their fault for doing Karate Kid dirty, essentially. There were also like flashes of what could have been with the Jackie Chan, Ralph Macchio dynamic, but it was too little too late. Like, there were some moments of humor between them that worked, and I would have been down if we have to live in a world where they're going to blend the 2010 Karate Kid in with the Miyagi-verse. There's a world where that works, but it needs to be in a movie with a lot more depth to it, and we need more time for that relationship to blossom as the co-senseis, essentially. It was just the most random moment when Jackie Chan's character was like, yeah, I know a guy. And then he goes and he recruits Daniel. They barely know each other. They don't know each other at all, actually. It's quite confusing to me as to why Daniel just hopped on board so quickly. I don't know. This movie frustrated me to my core. I can't get over how irritating it is. The lack of heart put into the film shines through, and it just all feels, honestly, a bit disingenuous to make this movie and act like, oh, yeah, this is like Karate Kid Legends. This is for the fans. It's not. It's not. Because what is for the fans? Something like Cobra Kai. Something that is made by fans of the Karate Kid who know the lore, who love it, who want to share moments with the fans. They're just, the creators of that show, just as excited about it as the fans are. Here, it's just Sony trying to be greedy. And I worried about this. I went in open-minded, but I worried this would happen, and that's the case. I mean, I don't know who this movie's for. Why was this movie made? To try and make a buck off Karate Kid? But even then, it's kind of disrespectful to just the legacy of the Karate Kid and Mr. Miyagi, Daniel, all that. Like, this is where we've fallen. And it's a shame when you've got recent projects in the universe that are so much better, done with so much heart and love and appreciation. It's just like, why are we going to this? This is not the route we need to be headed. So at the end of the day, this movie's bad. There's no getting around it. It's a rushed mess that tries to make a connection between different eras of the franchise. It doesn't need to be there. This movie doesn't need to exist. There is like a little scene at the very end of the movie that I liked because it involved a cameo, and I was like, okay, it's good to see this person's face again. Still, it was all too little too late, and it's a shame. It's a damn shame that Karate Kid Legends is a stinker, but it is, and there's no getting around it. Does this movie need to exist? Absolutely not. But at the end of the day, at least it didn't butcher the beautiful ending of Cobra Kai that sent those characters off into the sunset. So that's just my honest review of Karate Kid Legends. Not a fan, all right? Not a fan. Stay tuned for my ranking of all the Karate Kid movies coming very soon. Of course, hit that like button, subscribe to that notification bell, and be on the lookout for more videos coming very soon. But until next time, I'll see you guys later.